Hey, good afternoon. And if you're new to the group, welcome. I know we have a lot of new people in here. I just wanted to pop in for a short time today and talk a little bit about something that I've been running into a lot lately. I've had a lot of people come to me and ask about book editing services, which I do. I'm a writing coach and a book editor. So I'll schedule a call with them to see, what they need, what they're doing. And usually you don't wait until you're done with your book to go find an editor, right? It's smart to plan ahead and make sure that you can get into your editor's schedule, because if somebody is super busy, they have a lot of books they're editing, they're doing a lot of stuff, then you don't want to get your mess up your deadline. So if you have a schedule for releasing your book, not getting in with the editor you want will push everything back. You may not be able to launch on time, right? So I'll schedule a call and talk to people about their book, about what their needs are, what their big plan is. And I ask a lot of questions because I want to make sure that, if you do need extra help, I can coach you through it, because I don't want anybody to not be able to finish their book, right? So I ask a lot of questions about what their plans are, what they're going to do with their book, why they're really excited to get this out there. And a lot of people will say things like, oh, I just want to help people. Oh, I just need to get my story out. A lot of people tell me I really need to write a book, so I thought that this was a good idea. And all of those are great reasons to write a book. So if that's been playing in your head, wonderful. That's a very good reason to write a book. But I find also that a lot of the people who come to me and talk about editing don't end up coming to me with their book when they say they're going to have it finished. So I talked to a client back in May, and she said, hey, I think August I'm going to be done. I will have it to you. August went by. I checked in with her, and she said, I'm thinking just a couple more weeks. Well, it's almost the end of September now, and I still don't have her book. And I know that she keeps pushing her deadline out. And I'm not sure if this is what the problem is, but I suspect that she doesn't have a really solid why. She doesn't have a really solid reason to get that book out to begin with. Because, even if you are driven to write, and I know especially creatives, we're very passionate about doing our creative thing, we really want to write that book. But you can stop halfway through writing a book, even if you're really passionate about it, because you don't have a solid reason to get it out there. It's not an emergency. It's not a necessity. And those are the things that we have to address up front. So whenever I start working with clients, especially in my Brilliant Business Book Intensive program, we always look at what your major reasons are for getting that book out there. You have to figure out what audience you want to reach and what that purpose is. Those are actually two of the letters in Spark Method, the P for purpose, A for audience. That's stuff we do right up front, because if you don't have a solid reason, if you don't have specific people you want to help, if you're just saying, oh, just, whoever picks up this book, whoever wanders onto my website, strangers I meet at the grocery store, like if you don't have a really solid audience, a really solid purpose, then you are not going to find the drive to write that book. So some of the questions you can ask yourself right up front is, who do I want to help? That's the most basic thing you can think of. And a lot of the same stuff you ask yourself about your book is the same for marketing your business. Who do I want to help? What is their big problem? If you don't know what their big problem is, you're not going to feel as driven to write your book to actually help them with that problem, right? And why is that a huge problem in their lives? If they feel sick all the time, that's a huge problem. If they are, scattered, they live in chaos, that's a huge problem. If they really want to get from this crappy career they have to a much better career, that's a huge problem. And if you're looking at those things when you sit down and write your book, then I guarantee you're going to feel more driven to write it, because those are the things that you are passionate about. Those are the things you want to talk about. Those are the things that you're helping your audience with. So ask yourself those big questions about who it is, what they need, what their big problem is, and then look inside. How are you personally able to help them with this problem. Because if you don't feel like you can help them, then that also can be a stumbling block. And again, you can get halfway through a book and then go, oh, I don't know if I'm really qualified for this. And, I just want to say quickly, I have had people come to me with a half-finished book and said, do I need to scrap the whole thing? Is this garbage? Look back through it and see, okay, is this something I can use? Is this something I can use? What is that purpose? What is that audience? Chances are you've written some stuff you can use, possibly the whole thing, and you may be able to rework the ending. But, if you're not figuring out exactly who you're writing for and what the purpose is from the beginning, you're going to have a rough road ahead of you. And that's why I'm glad you're watching this video, because I can talk to you about this before you start writing. Just a brief little bit about my first writing experience. So my first book, it was a fiction book, but I used everything that I learned writing my fiction books to help people write nonfiction, because it's a lot of the same structure. My first book, Martina McKenzie, The Diana's Eye, I sat down one night, like a Friday night when I was in college, and I thought, I really want to write a book. I've read a ton of books. I have this cute idea for a book. I really want to write this. And I started writing and writing and writing. I wrote 3 chapters that night. It was like 3 in the morning. I went to bed, got up the next day, went and did my thing. Years later, I was still rewriting that book because I did not have clarity when I sat down at my desk that night. All I had was a cute idea. All I had was a little bit of drive. Now, granted, I got through the writing, but I rewrote that book every year for several years. I actually had to work with a professional to sit down and figure out, okay, is this good? Is it not good? What's going on? How can we clean this up? It ended up being a big pain in the butt to go back through and do all this cleaning. And I don't want to see you do that. So always make sure you start from the beginning using your spark. Purpose, audience first, always up front. And if you know what you're doing, you know how to get through this process, you know who you want to reach, and you have that big drive, then every time you start feeling stuck in the process, if you stop being excited, you feel like your passion's kind of dried up, you can stop and look at your notes from the very beginning and say, all right, what in the world am I doing this for to begin with? A lot of people talk about, like, the reason they do their business is to put their kids through college, or so they can have some flexibility to be home with their families or whatever. Your kids are walking the door every day. That's a good reminder. Do the same thing for your book. Have a notebook beside you. Put a little Post-it note up by your screen and put on there, this is my why. This is why I'm writing this book, and I'm going to get it done. I'm going to get it done on time. I'm going to get it to my editor on time because she's marked up a spot in her schedule for me for mid-October. And then you will meet your deadlines all the way through. So let me ask you this. What is your reason for writing your book? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to talk to you guys about it. Have a good afternoon.